to answer viewers' questions. You're going to have to forgive me. I tripod in another country, so I currently have my gimbal taped to a stick. Classic. I needed a better tripod anyway, so that just gives me an excuse to buy another one. Review really quickly. It's been over a month now since we've done a live. Everybody let me know if my sound is okay. If my sound is not okay, let me know ahead of time so I can change headsets here or whatnot. Looks like a barn in Ohio. Yep, that's it, pretty much. All right, we're here in the storage room with kettlebells, Swagman rolls, and Pathfinder coffee stuff. What did we do since last time we talked here? Since last time we went to Thailand, we taught a 5-day seminar. The 5-day seminar was be sound is echoing. Echoing? Is it the location or is it the headset? Let's try headsets. We went to Thailand. We taught a 5-day seminar. It was pretty awesome. This other one's even worse. How echoey is it? Sounds good for somebody else. Okay, Grant Gardner says sounds okay. Awesome. We went to Thailand. We taught a 5-day seminar. I've realized that people don't fully understand what these seminars are about. So I'm going to try to give like a general overview. We've already done some videos on it, but I would like to be able to answer questions so that people can better understand, so I can understand what people aren't understanding about the seminar. The seminar we did in Thailand was at an aerial retreat location that one of my friends had built. The whole point of going to Thailand is to build adventure into training. I myself, I don't think I've ever taken a vacation ever in my life, but I have gone places to train, which is like a vacation for most people. It just involves sweat and violence and lifting heavy objects instead of sitting on the beach. I've never gone anywhere to sit on a beach. Although, when you say it aloud, it sounds like it might be kind of fun now that I'm older. The whole point of putting things in faraway places is that it is an adventure, and that's part of what I want the seminars to be psychologically. We will have a bunch of seminars in America, and hopefully we'll have a Los Angeles location coming up. We're in talks about a Los Angeles location, which will be in an armor shop. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but there's a whole fighting league, which is knights in armor beating each other with metal weapons for full contact matches, usually multi-person. A guy I know is an armor maker, and we're thinking about teaming up. I won't be teaching the armor fighting part. We'll continue to teach my version of fighting, which is the bottom stuff, the stuff at the absolute bottom. Learn to walk, learn to step, and my duct taped thing is going to fall apart here. Let's see if we can't duct tape it better. Man, my gimbal's not straight up and down. This thing's killing me. We're just going to leave it. Is it going to work? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. No, looks like we might be losing it. So the location in Los Angeles will be a special effects studio and an armor gym location. So we're going to try and get some of those on for the later part of the year, probably after July, if at all possible. I think that's going to be really cool. But the point of all of these seminars being in weird places is that adventure is part of the learning process, and it helps people learn to get out of their comfort zone. So I am obviously a Joseph Campbell fan, and model the idea of my seminars on Joseph Campbell and The Hero with 1,000 Faces and The Hero's Journey. So I am specifically designing seminars to force people to do things that they don't want to do, like leave home, right? In The Hero's Journey, you have like the call to action, the refusal, which is everybody who doesn't come to a seminar. And then the people who eventually come to a seminar, they have to travel someplace far away from where they live, which forces them to be put into a new environment. Then they work with people that they don't know. That is, gathering friends and allies phase of the hero's journey. They work with people they don't know. They do things that they don't know what they're fully going to do. They learn to get better, and then eventually they return home having done something that they've never done before, and it changes the way that their brain works forever. So just by putting seminars in weird locations like Thailand, we're going to have one in Bali coming up. We have London in 2 weeks. I'll be going to Scotland after that to scout a castle for future seminars. Seattle is the easy one for most people because it's in the continental United States. There's no language barriers. It's not a long flight. It's relatively inexpensive. We're building our seminars this way for a reason because it's challenging the way that people think and they have to think about what they're doing. I'm trying to get very far away from the idea that people need a gym. Obviously, I've made 900 YouTube videos telling people to go work out in dirty fields and on the tops of mountains and in the snow and everything like that. And the point of going to something like a seminar in a weird location is that eventually you do have to go and ask people if they think you're doing something right. You don't always have to listen to them. I've gone to many seminars where people tell me I'm doing something wrong, and I disagree with them fully, and I tell them to go fuck themselves. No, I mean I tell them, how do I say that? I tell them that I think that they're incorrect for X number of reasons. The more seminars you go to, the better overall your understanding of what you're doing is, and the more likely you are to continue to do the things which are good in your life. So there's all kinds of psychological tricks buried inside the ideas of seminars. And they are designed minute by minute. A lot of seminars are not as nerdily designed as the ones that me and Summer do, but ours are intensely nerdy in design with a series of decisions built into them, just little decisions. You decide to move your feet, you decide to block. We're trying to build seminars from the most basic thing, and now we're going to get into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think that most people in the modern world are crazy, and I think that society is probably going to fall apart because people do not fully understand the base of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. For those of you who don't know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is kind of an order of things that you need to know in order to become the best version of yourself. You can look it up on your phone right now if that's what you want to do. But at the bottom of that is, food, shelter, security. And I think that a lot of people in the modern world fail to understand we have a lot of food, we have a lot of shelter, but people don't really understand some basic human things anymore. They don't really understand quite how humans are supposed to move. They don't understand the point of thumbs are meant to swing levers, and levers are meant to help you both defend yourself and build civilization. So what I'm trying to design seminars as this weird nerdy hero's journey to have people learn a thing at the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that I think is not being taught almost anywhere. It's not even being taught for the most part in martial arts. There are a lot of good martial arts schools out there. There's a lot of really, really bad martial arts schools out there. So I tell people to do like 3 major things. I tell people to do something like judo. I tell them to do something like kickboxing. I tell them to do something like Krav Maga. We've talked about all that before. Krav Maga, you have open hand, palm, heel, punch, elbow, hammer fist, outside 360 defense, driving knee, front kick, roundhouse kick, and kick to the groin. So those are the most basic things you can learn in open hand fighting, and they teach it to you at a pace that's meant to be 2 hours a week, so that in 2 years you have a generally good idea. Where Krav Maga falls apart is they don't do an equal amount of training on both sides of the body, or at least none that I've ever seen have done it that way. And then kickboxing, where you just focus on hitting things and sparring. And then judo, where you practice throwing people on the ground. So if you were to practice those 3 martial arts, you would have a general idea of how to defend yourself. But where all of those things fall down is in the most important things that humans do, which is operate levers. So most martial arts will not teach you the operation of levers until way, way, way later in training, whereas I think it should be first. So that's how part of the things in my seminar, we teach staff, we teach mace, and we teach club. And we teach them back and back. We teach them back to each other, and then we repeat the learning cycles over and over and over again. So it's not a whole day of staff, a whole day of mace, a whole day of club. It's staff, club, mace in 3 hours, and then it starts over. And staff, club, mace, staff, club, mace, staff, club, mace. So people can learn to see how they go together. And we're working on the most basic things first, which is attack, defend. Let's see if we can't get this thing to actually hold itself up again. Yeah, okay, there we go. Just had to readjust that properly. We're trying to teach it in a very specific way because I'm trying to get to the part of people's brains that's below language. Like chimps, I always use this as an example. Chimps don't have verbal language, but they wage war. You can look up the chimp war of the 1970s, where they actually observed small tribes of chimps attacking and murdering each other and taking over each other's land, which is, so we know that warfare and violence is below language in the evolution of the mind, but it's not taught that way. So civilization has made people very good people. The problem is people tend to be nervous because their brain knows they don't have the bottom part of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because something like self-defense and the use of tools has been so de-emphasized in the modern world. So this is incredibly nerdy. So the seminars are designed the way that they are for a reason. There's a hero's journey built in there, which changes the way people's brain works. We're organizing information from the thing below language to what humans really need to know in order to have the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs more fully realized for each individual who comes to the seminar, so that they can build other things on top of it. They have a better understanding of their weightlifting technique. They have a better understanding of why they're doing it. And they have an understanding of basic movements for attack and defense that have now been learned experimentally, not told to them, not read in a book, learned experimentally one step at a time, so that people can never, ever, ever forget it. We have a bunch of people who have been coming to these seminars multiple times now, because each seminar, they say, changes their brain in such a positive way that they come back, and then their brain changes even more, and then they come back. I think we've done only maybe 4 or 5 seminars, and we've had a guy who's already come to 3 of them, and he is radically different as an individual now. And that is the point. We're not just trying to like teach people heavy club swinging, although we will have seminars that are just focused on that. We have one on it in May, on it in Austin, Texas. We are trying to build out a better understanding of why athletes are doing what they're doing, so that they can understand that forever, so that they can live a better, healthier, more full life forever. Yeah, I think I'm saying it right. Let's actually go to some questions now, because I've rambled on for 10 minutes. Go all the way up to the top here. Sounds good, sounds good. Some people hear echo, some people don't. Sounds good. Greetings from Ukraine. Thank you for your content. Keep me fixed with limited equipment. Excellent. That is the idea. People have limited equipment all over the world. The world is not comprised of fully functioning, highly equipped gyms. The world is comprised of dirty, muddy fields and sticks and rocks. And everybody should understand the basics of lifting sticks and rocks in order to build fitness. People who are in places like Ukraine, conflict zones, need fitness more than anybody else. And they don't need chest press. They need to learn to pick up the appropriate amount of weight and move with it for long periods of time. If somebody is in a conflict zone, they need to be able to carry all of their gear, and that could be weapons, gear, winter clothing, cooking equipment, food, water, and support gear. So there's a reason we talk about kettlebells and clubs a lot. You can make clubs almost anywhere in the world. We should make videos on how to do that. I realize now I've never done that. With some sticks and some concrete, things that you can generally get a lot of places in the world. And if you just do 360 squats with a semi-heavy club and then carry ruck or carry gear, you can build a really good high level of fitness. We've talked about this recently. I made a video about this, 10 minutes. Learning to endure for a minimum of 10 minutes is something that people should be able to do. We've also talked a lot about kettlebells and the appropriate weight ranges of, say, 16 to 32K. And that is specifically because it has mimicked the normal loadout for all of human history, from ancient Greek hoplites to Roman legionnaires to 14th century knights to Japanese samurai to modern day people. 50 pounds is a light load out. 70 pounds is where now you're carrying like a 3-day bag, and it can go up to 100 pounds. But most people aren't fully going to need that. But there is a reason that there are recommended weights in both kettlebelling and clubbing, and it's because we're fitting people into learning to endure with the amount of weight that they need to endure with. And the reason that we're adding complex movements together, say a clean squat press, a clean squat press, get up, a step back lunge, is because the world is actually full of full integrated movements under these appropriate amounts of load. The great thing about living not in conflict zones is that we can get gear and we can start building ourselves up to the point where our body can sustain that for long periods of time, right? People in conflict zones don't have an A-B split. They don't have a day off. They have to keep going and they have to keep training. And that is what we are trying to do. Give people useful information, whether they be on a farm, whether they be in a 5th floor walk up in New York City, or whether they be in a conflict zone. There is always an option for everybody, and the information should be understood. Fitness does not need to be based on how good your equipment is, although good equipment certainly helps, but we certainly don't need people to be in the gym. We need people to learn the most important things, how to endure under the appropriate amounts of load. So thank you, Stas S, for checking in from Ukraine. I can talk about these things all day because I think about these things a lot throughout human history. Question. Do you ever plan a machete video course? Yeah, we shot one. I just was not happy with the film work at all. I've shot a couple of versions of it, but I realized it needs to be way better shot in order for me to be happy with it in any way. You will notice, like, I've done some 4 programs for other companies, and I just don't think that the film work is all that clear or good. So you'll notice then I shoot my programs probably excessively overly done. Location editing wise, hundreds of videos, so that it's almost impossible to not do it right. So like I assemble follow along videos that are timed with all the timers and everything in it because I want it to be extremely well understood. And if nothing else, you could put in just hit a follow along video and follow along through all of these things until people learn it better and better. So I'm trying to hit all of these ideas. The machete course, I would love to do. My training partner for machete, I have 2 training partners that I wanted to shoot machete with. One of them is a stunt coordinator, a fight choreographer. She's great. She's amazing, but she had sustained a hip injury on a big long shoot. So she's currently in rehab. Can't use her. My other friend, Amina the Warrior, is currently also indisposed due to some family issues. And, the soonest she could be back up is September. So I would love to shoot a machete course because I super nerd out on things like machete. And I am absolutely horrified at the intro instruction for almost everything that I see in relation to that. There's a lot of stuff I love about advanced sword fighting, German longsword, rapier, all these things. But they're, to me, not something I want to spend a bunch of time focusing on because machete fighting is the only sword fighting still done on the planet. Machete fighting is in Africa every day. Rwandan genocide. You still have, the Lord's Salvation Army? Am I saying that right? Right. They run around with machetes and attack villages all the time. So defense against machetes is a real thing. In South America and in Central America, cartels and all these other things, it's machetes. And you can get online and you can watch fights of machetes, real machete fighting. I only found one video of saber fighting, and it was in India at like a Sikh temple, but it was only one side with sabers and the other side just had sticks. So I talk about machete fighting a lot because I want people to start with sticks because sticks are the basis of tool use and they're the most basic weapon that people can have. And then I want them to go to agricultural big knife, which is machete, an agricultural knife. And agricultural knives that I am talking about, my favorite is obviously the Latin machete because it closely mimics the size and shape of a Chinese dao, which is what I am most familiar with, which I base a lot of this off of. A lot of the machete idea that I built and designed is based off of some stuff I did like 15 years ago with a capoeira guy, where we were doing like a stage show as acrobats or something. And here's a capoeira guy, and he's amazing. And I was a kung fu guy, and we would be sitting there during light techs, two guys who aren't supposed to be in theater in any way. And so we just had a bunch of swords that we were using, that they were using in the play, and we started sword fighting. And I was like, oh yeah, when you take away all the forms and the structure and the patterns and you fight somebody who has no idea what your martial art is, you have to change everything. And so we used Chinese Dao, but we just were destroying them 1 in 30 minutes, no problem. We're just cutting through them left, right, and center. So eventually I just started using machetes. Two machetes from the same company tends to be best because they tend to be the same metal. Something like a cold steel machete will cut right through a Tramontina machete from South America, because Tramontinas now have terrible metal in them. Tramontinas are famous machetes, and I've always loved them in film and television because they pop up a lot. And so I bought a bunch and put them up against cold steel, and you were cutting 1 inch into them on the first strike. So Tramontinas are off my list until somebody tells them to make their machetes with good metal again. But the whole idea that I teach with machete fighting is based on a very specific set of ideas, because I'm just trying to get people to do the basics. Block, attack. Block, attack. And it's very different than some other types of sword fighting that are out there. Like long sword, real HEMA guys, historical European martial arts guys will absolutely despise it because we're not doing, posta de donda or posta de dente, whatever my Italian is, tooth of the boar. We're not doing that stuff. I let people rediscover martial arts on their own, which is the point of why I do what I do. So I would like to film a machete course. I just need people to do it with. And both of those people have already been through the machete course, so I could film stuff with them fairly easily. Also, it's pretty hilarious to put me up against, I'm 6'2" and 240, and my friend is, 5'4", 100 pounds, so it just looks hilarious on camera. And Amina's taller, much more a professional athlete, but she's also indisposed. So that also looks great on camera because it's a huge guy. It's the David and Goliath image. I would like to make machete content. I'm just not sure how to do it. And I'm in talks with a machete company to actually build training machetes the way that I want them to be done. Because the equipment that I want people to use currently doesn't really exist. I've been adapting equipment, but it's only about 80% at the best side, and it's about 50% at the less good side. So we'll get to it. I can talk about machetes all day, obviously. Best machete in history, Collins machete from World War II. Brilliant. That's a real machete. They're super expensive and hard to find now. They have a distal taper on a blade, like... what's my word for German big knife? It's like a dowel. Crap, I'm losing my word. I'm losing my German. So yes, Tom Furman. We do plan to do a machete course. We teach it in person, but video. It's pretty crazy to try and do that in video, and I'm not sure if people will kill themselves. Nobody's ever been hurt in one of my machete classes. People have been hurt not listening to me after I leave. I'm not there. Not my fault. The best vacations are a Mark Wildman vacation. Next product, Mark. Not a bad idea. I'd like to just do more travel videos, but I need to actually take a camera person with me. Hazel Maines, organizing her questions with a question at the beginning. Excellent. Thank you. Did the skin on people's hands hold up doing 5 consecutive days of club, staff, and mace, or do seminar attendees need stuff like hand tape, super glue, and such to get through it? I am very, very, very aware of how people's hands hold up. That's part of the reason for cycling back and forth between apparatus as often as we do. We did have some people lose a little bit of skin, but nothing bad. But it's always a good idea to bring super glue and hand tape or foot tape to something like that. Oftentimes people will get blisters on their feet from changing directions, and that'll happen even at a normal yoga seminar or any type of dance seminar. But for the most part, we pay attention to people's hands quite a bit. We don't use super heavy weights with the weight stuff, and that's part of it. But yeah, I think we had a couple of hand things, but nothing major. Nobody had to fall out because of hand issues. Everybody continued on. But it is definitely a recommended idea when you're coming to a seminar like this to bring super glue, 100%. Always bring super glue. Glue your hands down. Really helps. Cameron Mardiros. Long head bicep question. What are some good active recovery tips? Many movements aggravate it. Two hand press out, globe press, rock bottom load, unload. Already obsess about lats, arm straight, elbow pits out. It's going way, 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 way down in weight, down into the 10% range of what you could do before, usually. But without knowing more about whatever happened to the long head of the bicep, I couldn't answer that. The answer to almost all these things is always movement is medicine. So taking out tons of load, but moving under the level of pain into minor discomfort is usually how most of this stuff is taken care of. So yes, Cameron, movement is medicine. Figure out how to make it light enough that you don't kill yourself. Grant Gardner, club question. Grant Gardner is the Lord of the Discord. He runs the Discord server where people talk about all of this stuff all the time, program design. If you have questions, get on the Discord and ask away. We have a lot of extremely smart people there who are probably better than every trainer at Sports Club LA at this point for answering question and program design, which has always been the point. Grant Gardner, club question. Gripping with the thumb. Should my thumb wrap over the fingers like a punch or rest alongside fingers and brace the club to help prevent it tipping? So, excellent question. Where's the club? I have one right here. Hold on. We've got a Wildman handle right here. So, club, more like a punch. So a punch is like this. Sometimes what you will see is people push their hand out of the way and it will compromise their grip. And you will notice that their knuckle is not in line. So they'll have 1, 2, 3, and this top one will be deviated. We really want to avoid that. The goal is to get people to close their thumb over the top. If you were to do barbell, it might be different. Kettlebell is different. Barbell is different. But think about this as a punch, as close to a punch as you can get your hand to be. The reason I like the Wildman size is that people's fingers don't close so much that they contact the backside of their hand, which is what happens with thinner clubs. So I'm trying to get this gap here enclosed underneath, but not pushing their grip out of the way. This is something you'll see a lot when people in the beginning, and you'll see this dip in their hand, and it will cause other parts of their hand to loosen so they won't be able to fully grip. So grip all the way. When people are catching at the top of a movement, the top part of their hand squeezes the most. We call it the OK grip. And when people are swinging, the club is pulling out of their hand. We call it the ice cream cone grip. So we're trying to get our hand to be tight, specifically getting away from any gap in our hand here. If you look at somebody's hand and it looks like this, there will be a gap and the club will bounce around in the top of their hand and they will get really red and sore up here. Excellent question, Grant. So we are trying to make it like it's a fist, but it will change with every movement. But getting people to learn to go between the types of grip is something that is only built through thousands of reps, which is why we design our programs the way we do to achieve thousands of reps. When people come to seminars, this is the first thing that I talk about, and I will coach this every day, all the time, and it becomes very interesting to see how people develop. Because everybody thinks that they're right and they don't really want to listen when they show up to a seminar. So they will hold way too high. Their wrist won't be in the top spot. And they will hold their hand up like this. And you'll say, move your hand down. And they will do that instead of lowering their hand in space. So I talk a lot about that. Move your hand down in space so that the hand can actually close. If the hand is too high, the grip won't close. People won't be able to use the top part of their hand. The top of their hand will get beat up, and you'll see it materialize by them losing a bunch of skin right here in their hand. So we start talking about that in seminars, and that becomes something that's coached every time, because people will always try to default to doing it wrong because they think it's easier, because they haven't gone up in weight or they haven't tried to hold on long enough. When people go do it long enough, they get to that 90 degree so they can get to that flat wrist so they can learn to close their hand all the way. It's a learning process. I've never had anybody not fight me on this. I am a psycho about grip with clubs, with machetes, with staffs, with maces, because people can't endure if they're not using their hands to the best of their ability. It's a pretty big deal. We talk about it a lot. So excellent question, Grant. It is trying to get to like a punch. We're not trying to fold our hand underneath or anything like that. We're trying to close it all the way. And the way that we look at it from across the room is knuckles in a line. The other thing people will do is they'll try to put their club on the back to stabilize it. Not doing that either. Wrap the thumb around. Excellent question. Did I say everything about that? Yeah, it's super important. How you hold a club changes how you hold weapons. So I teach weapons, but I teach clubs at the same time. Like if I have an actor come through my door and they have to learn to hold weapons, I start teaching them clubs right away, and we spend an equal amount of time with clubs and with weapons so that they're learning all these different types of transitions so they can look like they really know how to hold on to things. One of the things that drives me nuts in film is when you'll see people, nobody taught people how to hold guns, and you'll see a gap. Do I have a training pistol right here? I don't have one handy. You'll see gaps between the back of the beaver tail and their hand, and that would mean that the gun would cease to function because the center axis of the force wouldn't work right. If I see that on camera in like a $50 million movie or a $100 million movie, I absolutely lose it, because nobody taught that person how to close their hand for a close-up, which tells you that the filmmakers didn't know, or they didn't care, probably didn't know. But the stunt guys definitely should have taught somebody how to do that. Yeah, it drives me crazy. I think it was season 3 of Strike Back. I loved Strike Back as an absolutely brilliantly choreographed show with a lot of fun, real gun stuff in it. And then in season 3, one of the main characters is a new character, and she's supposed to be this badass, and her grip on the gun is awful, and it drives me bonkers. I had to stop watching the show. It bothered me so much. I don't even know how that show ended, which is sad because it was a great show. I'll have to look it up now. I'm going to have to look it up and read about it at least. Man, we got a lot of questions, guys. Brundolfsky. Package delivery guy hates him because of you. They think they're getting jacked from kidding all. Yes. Package delivery guys will hate you. Every UPS guy, FedEx guy ever hates me with the burning passion of 1,000 suns. I have a box outside right now that got delivered from Pro Kettlebell, and it's annihilated. They just threw it everywhere. I think they probably kicked it out of the back of the truck. It just looks like it's been run over by a train. So oftentimes, no matter how much thought I put into packaging, or I'm trying to make packaging better and better and better, it's going to get annihilated in transit. You're never going to get like a beautiful box with a heavy kettlebell in it. I wish that it weren't that way, but thus far, it seems like everything is very, very beat up by the time it gets to you. KD, health question. Thank you for labeling question. What do you think Western culture, this is going to be fun. What do you think Western cultures can learn from Eastern medicine and Eastern cultures? What practices do you believe should be adopted for longevity of mind and body? Well, everything. Eastern cultures have, 5,000 year history of health and longevity and wellness. They didn't invent MRIs. MRIs are great, but we're missing out in the Western world on a lot of the basic stuff. If you just taught people, if you taught everybody who is ill or who had an injury to swing light clubs as part of therapy for 20 minutes a day, you would solve, I guarantee, 90% of the health problems in the modern world. Sorry, this thing is not straight up and down. I think that the most important thing, the most accessible thing is fancy Indian club swinging. So I obviously teach heavy club swinging, which forces people to line up. There's no way out of lining up. If you start with a lightweight, a light heavyweight, which think is in the 10 to 15 pound region, then you would solve a bunch of problems. This is very similar. The reason I teach the movements that I teach is that they actually mimic. I don't know if anybody's figured this out yet. Discord guys probably have figured this out. That these families of movements are meant to affect the like humors from Jingyi, right? The lung, the kidney. There are different types of movements in Chinese medicine specifically, which move the torso in certain ways, which are meant to expand and contract the rib cage in certain ways and fire the core in certain ways, which are meant to massage the internal organs in certain ways. I don't talk about this a lot because it's really complicated and almost nobody cares about it. But like inside circle and outside circle and shield cast are the kind of the basics of a lot of movement in Chinese or internal medicine from Asia. I think that everybody should adopt a movement practice. You'll notice I talk a lot about joint mobility, neck mobility, shoulder mobility, all these other things, but I am talking about them free of cultural context, just about the joints themselves. Whereas something like Tai Chi, Bagua, or Jingyi are movement systems that are much more advanced. They take parts of the body and they integrate them into families or types of movements. Jingyi is my favorite representation of this, where you have, fire, earth, wood, a bunch of different elements, and the movements are defined by that element by a series of opening and closing actions of the body. But for the most part, that's really complicated for most Westerners to understand, or do they want to understand it. But we are stealing a lot of those ideas from the East and then removing them from all the weird cultural context and saying that's a great idea, but what if we just started on working on people's necks and moved the neck in all the correct directions every day, and then did cephalodoxal proximal distal trend, cephala, brain, doxal, tailbone, proximal to distal, the development of mammals in utero, head down, spine out. They all develop that way. Huge heads on embryos, little body gets bigger, arms grow out, legs grow out. So I think about joint mobility in that way, but as people get more advanced, they will start to reinstitute that movement into specific patterns. Ground engagement, I talk about some very specific ground engagements, but you'll notice we're doing the hyper nerd version of the 5 Tibetan rites, right? It's all in there. So things that we should take from Western, we should take into Western medicine from Eastern medicine is movement is medicine. Move all the joints in the proper order every day. build them into specific patterns that are useful for life. Swing weights, that used to be like Bagua sword, used to be a health practice where they used a double-sized dowel, and it was their version of heavy club swinging. The other things that we should definitely take are massage and acupuncture. 100%. 100%. Everybody should do massage and acupuncture, whatever you can get your hands on, wherever you're at. Acupuncture is pretty available now, most places in North America. You know, a lot of small towns, you'd have to drive to the next largest town, so you might have to drive 40 minutes to find it. Unless you're in Montana, I have no clue, in Idaho or that Central Valley of Colorado. You can still get it, Central Valley, Colorado, 60 miles each way, as far as I know. So we should adopt those things. Massage and acupuncture would solve tons of people's problems on accident. I had somebody comment the other day that they had started heavy club swinging, but they were having horrible pain in their head. And it just sounds like the muscles up here haven't moved properly in a long time. And those muscles wrapping up over the back of his head is pulling on his head and giving him headaches. And it's like, well, you should adopt things from Eastern medicine for that. It should be massage and acupuncture until those muscles can restore their movement fully, because many people have been so static for so long that just doing neck mobility won't fully free it. There will be parts of that muscle that don't want to move. So you get massage in there, good massage, not shitty massage. And you get acupuncture in there where somebody is done Chinese medicine. They understand the connection of all the muscles in the body. They put needles in them, what freaks out everything, causes it to relax, and then you can get rid of a lot of problems pretty quickly. Weight swinging, joint mobility, breath exercises, which is camouflaged in the other two things, massage, acupuncture. Absolutely should be taught to every doctor, and nutrition, which is also only taught for like 4 hours to doctors, which is absolutely bonkers. We talk about nerd stuff all day. Man, you guys asked a lot of questions. I'm just going to have to jump around here. I'm not going to get every single one of these questions. Marshall question from KD again. I think KD is asking questions for the Discord guys. KD gets on here and asks a lot of very well-framed questions that people on the Discord have asked so that they can get answers, so that they can talk about them, so that they can discuss, so that they can research. Excellent. Any experience with using self-defense full body armors for practicing attacks with weapons in hands? Yeah, tons. I have a whole pile. I was like one of the first guys to get a huge pile of the Spartan armor suits. I have both the female-sized ones and the male-sized ones. And we did tons of stuff with that for years. They're in storage. They've been in storage since COVID. I have not gotten them out. I would love to teach seminars on that again. I am trying to get a place in LA to actually do that. Nobody will let me do what I want to do in their space, so I have to get a place where I have control of the space enough that I can do this stuff. Tony Blauer obviously started with his armor first, and then the Spartan is the next one that I know about. I didn't know about Tony Blauer's at the time that I got those Spartan suits, but they were expensive. They're like, $1,500 a piece or something. I bought 3 or 4 of them so that we could do full contact drills. So what these suits of armor is they are thin pads. Think of it as going on like a bulletproof vest. It goes over your head, it velcros in the side, it goes on just like plates. There are shorts that have pads on them. You would think about snowboarding padded shorts. There are shin guards, knee guards, but they're thin. The whole point of the armored suits is that they are not like Red Man suits. Red Man suits have 3 inches of foam everywhere. But that messes with the way people learn because people inside the suit don't feel enough pain. The whole point of the Spartan suits is that you feel pain when you get hit. And you can do judo in them, you can do jujitsu in them, you can fight over guns in them. absolutely crushingly, amazingly fantastic gear. And we used to do that. If you go way back on my Instagram into the 2014 range, you will see a lot of that armor stuff. The way that I taught it was different than the way everybody else taught it, because of course I'm a freaking nerd. Where I would have people learn to hit and punch people so hard that I got hurt. It was somebody's got to get hurt, be the uke in order for somebody to learn, especially 100-pound women. You can't do a lot of full power strikes to the head. You would take off the helmet that comes with it, but you would put on a motorcycle helmet so you can get close enough to throw real elbows to the head, to the correct spot, not to pads, not out of range, all kinds of stuff. You all can also pad your inside of your arm. There's a special pad that goes here and here so that you can throw full power strikes at people and they can learn to actually block. You have to pad your arm because your arm will go dead after like 3 strikes like that. Otherwise, so I always use the Spartan gear. It's probably gotten better now. I mean, my stuff is probably 7 or 8 years old. Certainly the Velcro on most of my stuff has been used to the point where it's falling apart. Fantastic, fantastic stuff, because then you can do stuff like fight over guns. Where I was training this Wildlands firefighter who converted to an EMT, and he kept getting punched by homeless people and having people shove guns in his face. And he was like, "This is bullshit. This sucks. I don't want to do this." And he was super strong. Guy was creepy strong. I taught him to club because he had some injuries. He got super strong really fast. And then we started doing full armor fighting over airsoft guns. So you get the good Glock makes a good airsoft gun that's an approved Glock trainer. And you can actually pull out guns and shove them in each other's face and try to shoot each other because the helmets are rated for all the way up to simunition or UPMs. Are wax rounds that come out of a real gun that's super advanced, and I do not recommend people do that without supervision. But airsoft guns, we just do it in the studio, and it was great because, I'd done martial arts for years, and so martial arts guys all take guns away and do gun stuff a very specific way. And it's really good when you get somebody who's super strong and doesn't know the rules, and you're in full contact armor. You can start to fight over a gun because he pulled out a gun, slammed my head into the wall, jammed a gun into the eye of my helmet. And that was the start where you had to start learning to fight from there, which is not the way it's done in like Krav Maga or anything else. It's not done that way. And you get to the grip part where it turns into a wrestling match over a gun, but the gun will shoot BBs at you, airsoft rounds. So you're trying to get your finger, you're trying to bend the gun into somebody's face to pull the trigger. The other guy's trying to knock the gun out of battery. Now you're trying to put the gun back into battery to pull the trigger. Then he's trying to stop the trigger. Then you're wrestling over it. Then you have to decide, is it important? Can you punch him in the face? Or do you put 2 hands on the gun? Like, what's more important? You have to make a lot of choices very, very fast. And there is no better way to learn than that. Absolutely incredible. I highly recommend that armor, Tony Blauer's armor or the Spartan armor. I had the Spartan, but I would love the Tony Blauer's called High Gear. That's what it's called. It's expensive. It's worth it. But you need at least 2 suits, and the more suits you have, the better it gets. Because now you can start to do actual multi-person drills. You can do them inside of cars. You can slam people's heads into walls. You can do it in staircases. It gets real fun, real fast. Martial arts question. That was a good one. Yes, armor. Definitely do it. It is worth it. It is worth, a week in that armor is worth like 3 years at a normal gym. Because it gets crazy. You can actually pull out guns. You can do 2 guys against 1. Right? You're not afraid to slam people's head into the wall anymore. We used to do it in parking garages and slam people into cars. Super fun. And then you're like dropping under cars to roll away to try to escape because you're just so tired. You just want to get out of the drill. And then they jump over the car and they start smacking you in the head again. You're like, it's good. You should learn that. It's fun. KD, one hand club question. Do you see any problem with doing mill squat program all with the one-handed versions of movements? I don't. It's just hard, and most people don't have that much coordinated skill. So if you get to your heavy two-handed club up to like 50, then you would drop your one hand down into the range of like 20. For the most part, it's a lot harder on people's elbows, and people need to have really good positioning on their squat and stuff to pull that off. You can totally do it. You just have to be good to do it. So I tend not to have people do it. I tend to have people go up and wait. But if you want to, you can do whatever you want, right? We're just building a foundational understanding so that people can go off and create all kinds of crazy stuff. Eventually, I would like to have all the programs that everybody else makes and discuss those as like large scale learning events. Pete Wilson says I should consider South Africa. Actually have a guy who's training over there right now. He's security on movies. Rambo. His last name's Rambo, and he's over there training right now. South Africa is known for its knife crime. So if you're going to be spending a bunch of time in South Africa, I highly recommend you work on knife defense with the self-defense armor and with things like shock knives. I don't have a shock knife, but if I was going to go to South Africa, I would definitely go ahead and buy myself a couple of them and work with those all the time. And I would practice a lot of knife defense. Somebody says they used to work on HMBIA, Battle of the Nations with full contact medieval fights. Yeah, the full contact medieval fight guys are bonkers. So they're building full suits of metal armor and beating the shit out of each other with metal. The guy I know is a champion. He is 300 pounds. He makes me look tiny. I am 240. He outweighs me by 60 pounds. He's like, hey, do you want to spar? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I just do not have time to get hit that hard right now. I have production I have to do. But if I get into that space, I'll definitely be building myself a suit of armor for that. You just have to have the gear to build that suit of armor so that it's actually fitted so you can actually move in it properly. That's something I would like to do this year if I can pull it off. Program question. How would your structure... Let me start that again. How would you structure sets and reps focusing on attractiveness and hypertrophy? I am doing the 6 basic kettlebell movements, but swapped snatches for 2-hand club heavy shield cast. Excellent strategy already. If you focus on your 6 basics of kettlebells, you're already doing 90% of the training you need to for attractiveness because you're building a Greek body. When you move to double kettlebells, now you're building a Roman body. Replacing snatch with 2-hand shield cast is a great idea. It's absolutely fantastic. If you were training for attractiveness, then after that you would add 30-degree incline dumbbell bench press to failure. So the way that you train for attractiveness is to do your athletic training and then pick the thing that's most likely to make you sexy and focus on that thing to failure. Clubs and kettlebells, you do not train to failure. It is a terrible, terrible idea. Do not do it. Do your math and go up in weight. You will end up sexier on accident because you are building a Greek body that is fully integrated with abs and core and everything else. And the most important things that you need, your grip. If you replace the snatch with the 2-handed shield cast, great idea. Now you're taking and you're adding in bicep and you're adding in a lot more forearm. Think of kettlebell as dominated by tricep and straight arm grip. Think of club as dominated by bicep and 90-degree arm grip. They go back together, they complement each other perfectly, which is why I talk about it all the time. All the time. I want people to do an equal amount of kettlebells and clubs or kettlebells and mace for the exact purpose that they are essentially exact opposites of each other on load, but they are exact on the opposite ends of movement of real human movement. Then you would throw in something like your incline chest press. 30 degree is kind of accepted to be the one that has the most contractile, whatever, bunch of studies on that to make your chest look good. If you were to do incline bar press with a wider grip, you would probably get more attractive even faster. And those are things that are safe, so they can be trained to failure. Kettlebells and clubs cannot be trained to failure, or they shouldn't be. Something like bench press or incline bench press can definitely be trained to failure because you're not really in danger of dropping it on your face, or you can drop it on your face, but if you set up your gear correctly, you're not really in a lot of danger. Of course, you always see guys who do not set up their gear correctly and drop it on their neck or something like that. Don't be that guy. And then you would, after that, you would prioritize abdominal training. So kettlebells and clubs are abdominal training from ground reaction force with your feet on the ground, starting from the standing position. And then you would go to aerial abs. And aerial abs, I consider that in the categories of like Pilates, V-ups, V-sits, V-up, opposite arm, opposite leg raise, spinal rock, rolling like a ball, V-roll, ab straps, probably the easiest for most people to do in a limited amount of space. Toes to bar, straight leg toes to bar, inverts, pullovers, rollovers, and all those other things. So then you would start to build 10 minutes of that into your training after that. And now you're training for attractiveness in a very good and functional way. One of the main problems that I've seen people have, I had it myself before I figured out what kettlebells and clubs were really for, was that if you just train for attractiveness with abs in the beginning, your abs can get so strong that they actually pull your back out of alignment. Learned that one the hard way. Didn't know that was possible. And then I realized that you actually really need kettlebells and clubs to stabilize your core properly so that you can train for attractiveness more effectively. I just don't really do a lot of attractiveness training anymore because I don't need to. But if I was ever to work on a project or be a circus performer again, then that would be one of the first ways to do it. You would add the important angles first, the muscles that don't get hit in other ways, right? Chest is really a stabilizer for throwing patterns and for overhead press. So in the modern world, you tend to have people add chest so that they look sexier. And then after that, you would add abs. And then after that, what would come after that? I don't know. I have to think about what comes after that. It depends on what you need to do. William Ludwig has the 8X adjustable original club handle. That would be the 1 inch. Any reason that you would need the fat handle for the heavy club programs? I think I can close my hand better with a bigger grip. So there are 3 handles from 8X. There's the original, which is 1 inch. I don't like it because my fingers interfere with the way that my hand closes. I want my hand to close like that, where my fingers are not contacting my palm. That's very important for women who have longer nails. I just don't like my finger to do this when I'm swinging because my grip interferes with itself. You'll see circus rope also in the range of 1.5 inches. Like circus rope is 1.5 inches for a reason. It's because of the way the grip works. So if you have an original handle, I don't know, you tell me. It's all about what you think is best for your hands. So there's the original handle, the 1 inch, the fat handle, 1.25 inch, and then the handle that I had made, which is 1.4 or about 35 millimeters. I like that one the most. But you guys do whatever you want. I have a whole pile of 8X here. I mean, I think I have 7. I have 7 thread sets I'm looking at right now. So I keep trying different things, and over time, a gear will get better and better. That's the point. The point is that it saves you money no matter what. Just by buying any 8X handle, you're saving yourself several $100s in other equipment. and making it much smaller and giving yourself accessibility to weights that you cannot otherwise buy, which allows you to have better movement quality and get guaranteed strength increases no matter what. So you use what you have. I, of course, think that everybody should buy my handle, but that's just me. And hopefully in the future, we will be able to make entirely different types of handles, and handle evolution will get better and better. I'm big on handle evolution. I'm talking to a bunch of people about making new types of handles that aren't currently made. Just because I think we can do a better job. Just like Knipex pliers replaced normal pliers, or alligator head pliers replaced normal pliers. And nobody thought that they needed better pliers for 100 years. And then Knipex, a German company, came around and redesigned the plier and totally changed the game on pliers. And I can't even use other pliers anymore. I have some knockoff Knipex around here somewhere. Look them up, Knipex alligator pliers. The 10-inch and the 12-inch. 10-inch is probably the most useful. We're going to jump around a little bit here. There's just so many questions. Armand Fuladvand. Foot question. You preach keeping your feet straight ahead, but do you have any tips for helping make that more natural? I am constantly aware of how I don't walk with my feet straight, and it's maddening. A lot of people in the modern world do not walk with their feet straight ahead because they have, however old they are, years of programming to turn their feet out. You will notice people in the modern world have a bunch of foot problems, knee problems, ankle problems, hip problems, and back problems, and a lot of it has to do with lining up the foot. Westerners in particular turn out. I was reading an article in Backwoodsman about the observations of trackers in early colonial America in the early 1700s, and how even though Westerners, colonialists, were wearing the same type of footwear on the frontier, moccasins, breech clout, and leggings with hunting shirt, you could tell a native footprint from a European footprint based on turnout. Europeans been doing this a long time. It has a lot to do with sitting in chairs affecting the way that your hips develop. A lot other cultures do not have this issue. Like Japanese martial arts, you sit in seiza position or full kneeling position. Westerners have complained that that's really hard for them, ever since they started doing it in the late 1800s. And it's because people are developed by their environment. So you have to work on learning to train your feet straight ahead. And there's a bunch of tricks to do that. I still have not had chance to finish the single arm club program. That's the one that really gets people to point their feet straighter ahead for longer periods of time because of the way the shifting of weight works. If you turn your feet out when you do that program, of course, you get absolutely none of the benefits of it. And there are some tricks that we help people do to learn to do that better. It's hard for me to say, but it is maddening. Most people turn out to some degree. A lot of people, based on sport development in their youth, will turn one foot out more than others. My favorite example of this is tennis players, who, if they're right-handed, tend to turn out their right foot super far. Right foot super far? Yeah, same side. Because of the way that they do their big low hand power swing. So they tend to have terrible right foot structure and ankle structure. Maybe it's gotten a lot better now. I haven't trained any really good tennis players in 10, 15 years now, but it was shockingly horrifying. So a lot of my original work on single arm club training was specifically designed to fix tennis players and the weird stuff that they were doing to their power side ankle, knee, and hip. You were seeing 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds already with debilitating pain anytime they stepped off the court because they were so adapted to playing tennis and moving laterally and doing that one-sided swing that they had already altered the structure of their body around it. So you're going to have to focus on it for now. Pointing your feet straight ahead in between every set is good. If you go back to barefoot walking or barefoot running, it will also help because you will notice that turning out doesn't feel nearly as good. Pointing your feet straight ahead feels a lot better. And then we will talk about that more in the future because that is a huge issue for health and well-being for a lot of people. You can turn out for certain types of things. Ballerinas turn out because of their martial art. Different types of wrestlers will turn out because of shooting. But your average individual does not need to turn out in order to live their daily life. Yeah, so to me, it's a big issue that people have, and they just have to keep coming back to it and coming back to it. Uh, Let me find another question here. Here's a machete question. Tyson Henry. I love machete questions. Anytime I see machete question, I'm gonna answer it. There are so many how to pick a good machete. There are so many options. How would you pick a good machete? Like some have a sawback, which looks like a gimmick and not useful. I don't like sawbacks at all. When I was a kid, I had an Ontario U.S. military sawback machete. But there are where's a we'll get really nerdy. Do I have a machete right here handy? Or are they're all upstairs? Let me find something else here. So we're gonna grab a cold steel warrior katana, and we'll grab a training dowel. I hate sawback machetes for the sheer reason. So this is a training dowel, right? That you can't put your hand on the back of them and push, and you can't pass it around your head and drag it past your body to do certain types of cuts and movements. So I am a huge fan of single edged sword in all of human history, like even back sword, straight sword. So katana, right? Same thing. There's not one edge, and it allows you to do a lot of different types of movements, which I really like, which something like HEMA guys wouldn't do, because HEMA guys would be basing on a double-edged sword for most of historical European martial arts history. So I like a single-edged sword. That means I like a single-edged machete. That means I hate sawbacks. If you're going to carry a machete, carry a separate Baco Laplander. It's way, way, way better at cutting things. A Baco Laplander is a small folding saw from one of the northern European countries. Was a military one. They've now been supplanted. They were the best for a while, but now from silky saws, which are way, way, way more expensive. But the best machetes, I like cold steel Latin 18-inch machetes. Love them. They are not super heavy. Something like an Ontario Knife Company U.S. military machete is way heavier, but they don't have as much life to them when they move. I've never broken an Ontario machete, but I've broken about 10 cold steel machetes. But I am beating the living shit out of those things. They go after about 2 years of machete versus machete power training, when they will eventually break at the junction of the handle and the blade. I've broken a huge pile of them, but they were better than anything else I've seen. Cold steel is cheaper than an Ontario machete, but those are kind of the only two I would really consider. They're in the price point of what a machete should be. There are companies like Condor Knife and Tool who make much more expensive machetes, a lot of which aren't actually machetes because they're made out of like 1/4 inch stock. Like I have the Discord machete from them. Not a machete. I love the blade shape. Has this weird hook at the top that absolutely has to be ground off, so that you can actually, pass without slicing your own arm off. That's one of those things that they just put on there because it looks cool. But I like the shape of the Discord machete. But for the most part, There aren't a lot of great machetes out there, which is shocking, which is why I would like to start a machete company. Latin machetes, I think, are the classic machete shape. But I would love to see somebody do them the right way. I haven't seen anybody do them the right way. The old Collins machetes are incredible from World War II. They have a distal taper along the length of the blade and a distal taper from full back edge to front edge. They are cut like a sword would be. Modern machetes are flat stock with an edge on them. So they can't be nearly as sharp or nearly as good a cutter as something like a Collins is. But Collins are pieces of art, and you would never use them to train with because there just aren't enough of them left in existence. But if you needed an end of the world machete, Collins machete is the one you want. So I lean people towards the Ontario 18-inch because you can get the military hard plastic sheath that goes with it. I don't have one sitting here. There's one probably in the back of my truck, which is a really good, just cheap carry system that will last you 100 years. The cold steel machetes will break eventually, but only if you really beat the living shit out of them. The cold steel ones were cheaper. They were $20 now. I think they're like $35 since COVID. Everything's gone up in price. But I like the smooth back on them because it allows you to do a lot of stuff with blocking and running away and doing things in the dark that you can't do with a sawback machete or with a double-edged blade. Machete fighting is different than sword fighting because swords tend to have grips or tend to have hilts on them. So if you have a crossbar hilt, hold on. I'm looking at I'm looking at this I'm looking at this big training sword that we got a couple of these for Outlaw King, not because they're good, because they're bad. But actually really good for a bad chunk of steel. Really good for a bad sword. They tend to have crossbars on them, which keep things from sliding into your hand, right? A machete doesn't have this, or any type of this. If once it gets this, I consider it a sword in some way, whether it be a D guard or something like a hunting sword guard, which is probably my favorite guard. So you can do a lot of stuff with machetes, but the way that you block with something with a guard, you block more on point because things can get caught in this point. With a machete, you don't have that, so you block at like a 90-degree angle, and you figure out really quickly whether or not your block is good based on whether things slide towards your hand. Yeah, sawbacks on machetes, I wouldn't do it. Good machetes, I love the Tramontina name. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, the Brazilian machetes or South American machetes, but the metal on them is not good. And I've cut through Tramontinas with a cold steel, like on the first try, which is terrifying to train with. So there are some things I just wish that they were better. Cold steel is like middle of the road. It's not the best steel, but it's not terrible steel. It will last. It can hold an edge, and you can beat the shit out of it pretty hard. And I would love to see them redesign it with my specs, but that's never going to happen. Cold steel. It's never going to listen to me. That was a fun question. I love machete questions. I love machetes. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm machete guy. I have machetes all over the world in different spots. You know, if you go into my friend's garage in LA, you'll see my machetes are sitting there. Like all of my friends' house, there's like machetes. Any place I go and spend time, there's machetes there. I drop them off, I leave them in the corner someplace. Risk management, risk manager, risk MGR. Will you offer Mark Wildman certification courses in the future for personal trainers? Yes, I will. I am working on locations for that, which is the thing that I need the most. We are in talks as well with Bells of Steel to do some, trying to stabilize this gimbal again, guys, to do some training at their Indianapolis location because they have gear there, like kettlebells and stuff, For the most part, I have not been doing kettlebell seminars or certifications yet because I don't have a place that has all the gear. And I don't want people to have to bring all their gear because it's very expensive. So I'm trying to reduce costs for people. Clubs and maces are easy to travel with, kettlebells are not. So when we get a location that has access to kettlebells or to a bunch of adjustable kettlebells, then we will be doing kettlebell certifications. And yes, I will be offering in the future certifications for heavy club, for mace, and definitely for kettlebell, and then for some couple of outside things like body weight programming and stuff like that. Because I can obviously write a 5-year degree on all of this stuff, and I would like to see the world get better by having way better trainers in it. I am commonly shocked by what I see in gyms when I travel. What passes as personal training, I find semi horrifying for the most part. And you can be a good gym trainer, but I don't even see that being done well. You can be a good gym trainer really easily. It's not hard. If you taught people, if you're a gym trainer and you did the swing program with your clients twice a week, you did clean and press with people twice a week, and then you picked a body group after that and did it properly for 30 minutes, I think you crush your gym. You would take over the world in short order. The stuff I see out there currently is horrifying to me, and what passes for training education is a little terrifying, which is why I think once again the industry is not doing as well as it should. Super glue on skin. Didn't know that was a thing. Absolutely. Super glue was originally invented and used, I believe, in Vietnam. Maybe it was invented after Korea or during Korea, but it came into use during Vietnam to close skin punctures and skin wounds. So there are different types of super glue, and you can get medical super glue. I tend to just use normal super glue. It's probably killing me. I don't know if it's the same type of super glue formula that they had in the past, but it all used to be one thing, and it all used to be metal. But there might be different types now. But I like these little tiny super glue things that you get that are kind of one use, and they come in like a pack of 5 at like Harbor Freight. So you can stab into them, use them, and then because super glue is really hard to keep good for more than, say, a couple days, then you pitch it, and then you have another one that's unopened, so you know it's good. But yeah, super glue your hands together, super glue your skin down. Great idea. I used to train all the time, circus arts, and we would just rip chunks out of our hand. And the goal is to not have your hand rip, because once it rips, you're in trouble for 10 to 14 days, no matter what. But once it rips, if it just rips a little bit, and all the fluid comes out, you put super glue under it, you glue it back down to try to keep your skin on it. It actually heals way, way, way faster. Now you'll see they come in like a paintbrush bottle, and you can like paint glue on your hands and stuff like that. There's several different delivery systems for it now, but everybody should have super glue, certainly in their medical kit. And everybody should have a medical kit. Utbe Punk. Utube Punk. Utube Punk tends to ask a lot of good questions and does a lot of good comments. Tetris question. Can you consider dedicating a full Kajabi course on just the Tetris programming alone? Oh man, God, how would I even shoot that? Oh, how would I shoot that? Would I make a deck? Would I make slides? Would it be a PowerPoint? I'll think about it. I'll think about it. How to handle. So this is a continuation of the same question from Utbe Punk. How to handle variables and address the most common questions and obstacles. Heck, it would be cool if you could certify people to do proper Wildman programming. Also, not a bad idea. So that would be an eventual goal. People need to understand the basic 6 of kettlebells. They need to understand the 10 levels of club training that we have out there now, what and why you would do them. Then people need to understand the fundamentals of mace, and then the fundamentals of body weight, and then why you would do it. Anybody who comes to my seminars now is already getting all that stuff hammered into them. And it's a lot of Socratic method of learning where I ask everybody a question and nobody gets to not answer. Everybody has to say something. Over the course of seminars, they get better and better. So eventually the certifications will be the same way. There will be physical competencies required. And then eventually in the high level, so I'm thinking about doing, trainer, coach, and head coach levels. So trainer, you've demonstrated basic levels of proficiency. Coach, you must demonstrate those things with greater amounts of load and be able to answer specific questions. Think about how they do a doctoral questioning at the end of somebody's doctoral period after they write their thesis and they have to go in and defend. So it's not going to be that crazy because I'm not going to make anybody write a thesis, but I would like to put people into questioning, and then I want to see what their answers are. And then head coach would be even heavier weight, better technique, program design, and being able to answer questions off the top of your head from a series of common questions that people ask and a series of situations that you are likely to encounter. The higher the level you want to get to, the crazier those questions become, because then it starts to become not only about program design, but it becomes program design based on implementation, based on time frame, based on money. So it becomes engineering economics at the high level. Christian Thierry. Mark, check out Shadversity on YouTube, series on designing a functional giant sword. The techniques that are naturally coming out highlight all the mace fundamentals. Yes, I am familiar with Shadiversity. Shadiversity, and obviously Scala Gladiatoria is like my spirit animal, with all of his talk about historical real swordsmanship and how and why that was actually used in weapons design and everything else. I like Shadiversity because he's much more experimental in his approach to things. It doesn't have to be based on. He did a thing, I don't know, I've lost all concept of time since COVID, where he was designing swords and movements and then experimentally determining it in the context of like LARP. And it was pissing off a lot of people in the HEMA world because it wasn't historically accurate. And I don't care about historical accuracy because we're not in history. Historical accuracy is something that is necessary so you can see how people solve problems at certain points in history. But if you're coming up with a hypothetical situation, you solve for the situation, not for what was. But you can look at history forever, and you should look at history forever for how did people solve problems based on the materials they had. But if you have different materials or different things, then you can design different types of swords. You can design different types of movements. And you will notice that different martial arts throughout history solved the same problem in a bunch of different ways. Japanese sword is very, very similar to longsword from Europe, but they were designed in totally different ways and they use totally different implements, but they look a lot alike, they look a lot alike. And European sword, I think, is probably overall a better sword, but they had access to different types of materials and they tend to have more hand protection on them and a bunch of other things like half sorting as an entire option. Japanese sword, on the other hand, is the absolute best for quick draw. There is no good European sword at quick draw as far as I can tell, nor is there any European art of quick draw that I know about. So there are a bunch of different ways to answer the same questions based on input and based on ideas. So yes, I am familiar with Shadiversity. NZ Longbows, great name. Would love to see New Zealand Longbows. I got it now. Would love to see a Mark Wildman, Matt Easton collaboration. For those of you who don't know, Matt Easton looks a lot like me. And he runs a YouTube site called Scala Gladiatoria, which is just beautiful. He is a historian and he talks a lot about historical sword design from a historian's perspective. And he reads actual historical accounts and then comments on them. Like I've learned more about the history of European sword from him than anything else. The guy is a wealth of knowledge. I see he has his own line of swords coming out with museum replicas now. I just wish they were a little sexier. They're not super sexy like the what's their single edge German big knife. It's just not super sexy. But all of his stuff is based on real historical examples. I would like to design like future swords or something. I would love to do that. I would love to take the concept of like an old-fashioned hunting sword and turn that into a modern sword for small spaces and getting in and out of vehicles and stuff. You see a lot of guys try to do this, and they always end up recreating a weird wakizashi because of the 1980s and everybody in Japanese martial arts. But I think that it would be way better to design like a modern hunting sword would be way better than a modern wakizashi. Although I do love the cold steel wakizashi machete. Talk about something that's awesome for a good price. That's it. That is a mean, mean chunk of metal that is super inexpensive and is just absolutely fantastic. If there was a zombie apocalypse, that would be the thing that I would take. Yeah, Windless Steel Crafts. Matt Easton recently collaborated with Windless Steel Crafts, and he made a whole line of good stuff. I just didn't like the shape of the line. I thought a lot of Matt Easton's swords were so much cooler, and then what got built was very historically accurate, but it wasn't as sexy as I wanted it to be. But I'm still going to buy it, of course. I'm waiting. I was thinking about that 1796 saber because I'm going to go ahead and strap a saber to my saddle. Because why I don't have a saber on my saddle? I should have a saber on my saddle. It's ridiculous that I don't. It's either that or I'm just going to get like a cold steel Thompson saber, which people trash talk all the time, but which I don't know. I love cold steel stuff. I've trained with cold steel machetes for years. Cold steel knives, cold steel katanas are nearly indestructible. If it's a little bit heavy, I don't care. I'm a heavy club swinger. So, yeah, we can talk about swords all day. God, I'm a nerd. John Mackins, do you see a use for Indian clubs in strength training program outside of warming up the shoulder? I don't, but that's just me. I consider Indian clubs to be a health practice more than I consider it to be athletic training. So light weights for long periods of time using really infinitely complex movement patterns is very good for brain development, coordinated skill, and endurance, but it doesn't trip over into being legs and core. I like it for warm up, and I like it for anybody who has any type of injury, brain injury, traumatic brain injury for sure. Anybody who's had any type of spinal surgery, shoulder surgery, knee surgery, Indian club swinging, 100%. And I'm actually talked to somebody the other day, and they asked me to write an Indian club program. So if I can get around to it this year, I am going to make a series of follow-along Indian club programs. But it's way down on the list after 4 bodyweight programs, Mace 360, deck squat. What's the other one? I don't know. There's a bunch. I have like 9. So it needs to go on that list somewhere because I do think that it holds a very good place in rehab and in neurological development. Heavy club swinging is a way faster way to get more of what you want in the least amount of time. So yeah, I see it as being good, but I would not put it as anything that could stand alone. Heavy club swinging can stand alone. The basis of strength program, if you did that 3 days a week and you had any type of physical job, could entirely stand alone by meeting all of your needs as you push towards that 50-pound mark for men minimum. It's enough load for the legs. It's definitely enough load for the core. It's enough load to force people to do what they need to do. Indian club swinging needs to be combined with something else. If you were to combine fancy Indian club swinging with the basic 6 kettlebells, it would work out. The whole point of the Tetris idea is that a lot of these things will stack up and work out together. Kettlebells can stand alone, clubs can stand alone. Those are the only two things that I think really stand alone. Everything else needs something else. Kettlebells plus mace, great strategy. Kettlebells plus clubs, better strategy. Kettlebells plus clubs plus mace, fantastic strategy. Indian club swinging plus heavy club swinging, good strategy. Indian club swinging plus kettlebells, good strategy. Indian club swinging plus mace, probably need more load on the legs for the most part until you get to uber heavy maces in the 50-pound range, but then you lose a lot of the fancy stuff that I like in mace. Yeah, I see a place for Indian club swinging. I just don't talk about it much because I think that it's people are better off doing heavy club swinging, but I do see that there is a big need for fancy Indian club swinging because so many people do have injuries and they do need neurological development. So I will be doing a version of that at some point in the future. Ed the Worst. Have you tried Tai Chi? What's your opinion of it? Modern Tai Chi in America, I think, is complete nonsense. Chen style Tai Chi is way better from the Chen village because it's closer to an actual battlefield art. I think that almost nobody is teaching it in even a reasonably good way. If you wanted to know more about that, you would ask Red Forest Chinese Boxing. He knows all about this topic. I think that Jing Yi, I'm biased. I think that Jing Yi is way better. There are three internal martial arts: Tai Chi, Bagua, Jing Yi. I think that Jing Yi is the best. Of course, there's other internal martial arts, but those are the three big. I think Jing Yi is a better overall structure and teaching method, and it's far more based on actually contending with other people. I have never seen Tai Chi taught as a contention with other people modality. It's probably out there. I just haven't seen it. I think Tai Chi is a beautiful idea that was very effective 100 years ago when people had a lot more time to train. I have not seen anybody do Tai Chi in North America other than Red Forest who has a really good idea of how and why it's supposed to work. So people get this thing that Kung Fu doesn't work because people are not training it right. Kung Fu is an extremely advanced art form, and I'm placing all kinds of stuff under the bridge of Kung Fu, including Tai Chi, Bagua, and Jing Yi. I'm placing them under it, although they probably don't place themselves under it, as being a Chinese origin, full body boxing, wrestling style that's based on skill, Kung, skill training, Kung Fu, mastery of skills. I would love to see it be broken down and taught well. I haven't seen anybody do it. We could do it if we had a lot of time. The problem with Kung Fu is that because of its level of complexity, it cannot effectively be taught in a short period of time. So I tell people you have to recreate martial arts for yourself. If you ran your experiments long enough, they would turn into Kung Fu. If you do Krav Maga long enough and you do it on both sides, and then you focus on turning around and then you add weapons, it will turn into Long Fist. And then Long Fist eventually will turn into, when you put the throws back in Long Fist, they're hidden in the forms and nobody's teaching them except outside of China. And you start to understand those, and then it turns back into Xiao Jiao, Beijing wrestling. And once you combine both of those ideas back together and you get really interested in staying alive and not getting hurt, it turns back into Tai Chi, Bagua, or Jing Yi based on how much you want to hurt the other people philosophically. So I think Tai Chi is beautiful. I don't know anybody who teaches it well. Red Forest knows people who teach it well. I just can't keep up with everything all the time. But I think that people are much better off spending their time starting on something like Krav Maga and then learning to experimentally build it and then picking one of the 6 basic judo throws and then learning to integrate that in every possible situation and then adding another one, then adding another one, then adding another one and then adding another one. When I get a place that I can do this, that's what I will be teaching. Chen Practical Method Tai Chi. Check it out if you get a chance. Super frustrating, but very application based. See, Chen Method Tai Chi, but I haven't seen Chen Practical Method Tai Chi. Here's a question from Danny D. Carrier. He had a shoulder separation, first degree. How would you approach it? I'd approach it like everything. I would drop weight. I would work on my fundamentals. I would work on two-handed club with an 8X, so you could take it all the way down to 3.5 pounds. And I would run a perfect path of math back up. And then I would do single arm club training, focusing on inside circles, outside circles, and shield cast, building up your basics in a mathematically progressive way until you get to at least 10 pounds. And then I would start adding in inside pendulum, outside pendulum, pullover, and I would develop towards the mill and the reverse mill, first with the 10 pound, and then eventually building up to 25 pounds. Should take 4 years. White Wolf, I can't answer this question. Pinch nerve question, excellent labeling. What would you suggest for a median nerve pinch? Medial, median? You're going to have to tell me median here. I don't remember all of my anatomy terms all the time, so you're going to have to tell me where the median nerve is. It's probably the same answer that I give everybody all the time, which is reestablish proper movement, starting with joint mobility first, then moving to light weight swinging, then reestablishing all the movement patterns after, of course, you complete all your physical therapy. Wow, we're at 96 minutes here, guys. Let's find another one here. KD, training question. Oh, this phone's going to die eventually. Can you explain the different adaptation effect of monster lifts versus circuits, i.e. armor building complex, a Dan John movement of 2 cleans, 3 squats, 1 press? Am I saying that right? Versus mill squat style programming. They're different. So double kettlebell training adaptations use a lot more weight, but they move in simpler patterns. So think of kettlebells as being lots of hinging, which we call pitching forward and back, usually from the hips, and then heaving, moving up and down. So Dan John's armor complex, is it 3 cleans, 2 squats, 1 press, or is it 2 cleans, 3 squats, 1 press? Can't remember. Excellent, right? Fantastic, considering it's got clean, which is a deadlift pattern. It gets to shoulder height. You add in full range of movement squats, and then you do a double overhead press with 2 independent moving weights. Fantastic. The physiological benefits are you can use more weight. So you can move up in weight to get closer to the weights that you might encounter in the real world in straight lines. So double 24 puts you at 106 pounds for that. And you start stacking up sets of that armor building complex. Think of kettlebell weights as being, for the most part, a lower weight in kettlebells is equal to a higher weight in barbells because of the independent movement and the way that the grip works and the way that it crosses center line. As a generalization for the most part. 2-hand heavy club is all rotation. So you can handle less load in rotation than you can straight up and down. So think of heavy clubs as yawing, rotating about the vertical axis of the spine in your 4 major directions. Dominant hand inside, dominant hand outside, non-dominant hand inside, non-dominant hand outside. So if you were to combine something like Dan John, armor building complex with the basis of strength, you have the recipe for an absolutely fantastic program on accident, because the kettlebells can go up in weight, focusing on your basics of your truly Herculean physique if we want to do and Arnold Schwarzenegger there, the clean and the press is the basis of bodybuilding. The clean, the squat, and the press is really the basis of bodybuilding. So you can run and something like an armor building complex up in weight and up in weight and up in weight, and then run something like the basis of strength, which focuses on rotation on your other days, and you end up with a really good physiological adaptation in very short order because they perfectly complement each other, which is the point of the way that these things go together. Which is why I'm always talking about kettlebells and clubs back and forth with each other. On accident, the two different weight ranges of kettlebells and clubs, a medium weight kettlebell is 50 pounds. A heavy club is 50 pounds. So with the kettlebells, you get closer to the weights that you absolutely need to be able to move. A bag of grain is 50 pounds. You should be able to move it all day without fatigue. By learning to kettlebell with a 24K, people get good at moving the most common weight in history, about 50 pounds. When they get good at the 32K, they get good at a generally heavyweight, something that's generally hard to carry. 50-pound pack, not that bad. 70-pound pack, get real annoying real fast. And then when you double those bells up, now you're using exactly double. What that does is tricks your body into thinking that the normal weights are your 50%, which is genius. I don't know if they thought of this when they started doing this or if this just ended up on accident because this is what weight loadouts needed to be throughout history. But 224Ks is 106 pounds. So a 50-pound bag of grain becomes your 50%, which means you should be able to move it nearly infinitely. So the physiological adaptation of the two things is different. And if you get up to a 50-pound club, then you can definitely sling around a 50-pound bag of grain all day because when you move something in the real world, it tends to be rotation. Loading and unloading tends to be rotation. So getting people to that 50-pound weight with a bunch of different types of rotation tends to just make everything work out. I got kind of lost. I lost my original question here, KD, but the physiological differences are heaving and pitching versus yawing and heaving for the most part. And then in the basis of strength, we get into our surging patterns, which are stepping forward, stepping back. So for the most part, kettlebells, lower numbers of degrees of freedom, but heavier weights, but all with internal core stability. There's no way out of it if you do it with even half good technique. And think of clubs as moving and yawing, which I'm super interested in people getting good at because it's based off all throwing, striking weapons, and tool using patterns, and then balancing out with moving up and down, surging forward and back, and rolling from side to side. So I kind of got lost on what the original question was there, but I'm happy with my answer anyway. That was a good answer no matter what. Here's a question that's really weird. It's kind of super open-ended. Guy Diaz, strength question. What are the maximal strength standards a person should aim for? Like on what? All right, you have to define that. Like what strength standards and what? Right? Because a ballerina is brutally strong, but her deadlift sucks. But she's stronger pound for pound than anybody you know. So strength standards are defined by what the need is. So I have some strength standards, right? You should be able to pick up a 24 kilogram kettlebell and not put it down for 30 minutes. It should not touch the ground nor stop moving for 30 minutes. And I'll define that more in the future because there's a billion ways you could do that. I think that people should be able to men should be able to single hand a 30-pound club for 10 sets of 10 on mills and reverse mills. But I don't really have like a deadlift standard. Deadlift standard for like really strong guys is 2 times body weight. But I don't know anybody who's got, I'm a trainer and I don't even have 500 pounds of plates here. What do I have here? 400 maybe? I really what is the strength standard? I'm much more interested in Atlas stone lifting than I am in barbell deadlift. So you have to define what your strength standard needs to be. Because my deadlift, not that great. But my kettlebell swing, pretty solid. They're not the same thing. Pure strength is different from strength endurance. And which one matters more? And it's once you define a test like a 2 times body weight deadlift, people train to the test. And that tends to be really negative because there's a lot of guys who can do a 2 times deadlift but can't run 100 yards. So I define things more based on movement pattern than I do on pure strength standard. I know a lot of guys who can deadlift twice their body weight but can't climb a rope upside down. I can climb a rope upside down, no problem, but I can't do the thing. So strength is specific. So we have to ask that question. What are our strength standards for? And then we can define that. I would say a simple strength standard for a press would be 32K press with a kettlebell. Solid. If you can do that, you're doing pretty good. And then I say be able to run programs with a 50-pound club, basis of strength with a 50-pound club. What I'm trying to do is get people to have their max strength. It's not what they need to be. I'm trying to get people 60% strength, which is what becomes permanent, to be much better and much more useful. I haven't done pull-ups in years, but I was never good at pull-ups because I did aerial. So I didn't train for the strength standard. I trained for the act. I could do a 12-minute aerial act, but if you asked me to do 20 pull-ups, there was no way in hell because I had adapted to what I needed to do. But there's absolutely nobody I know who can do 20 pull-ups, who could even do aerial for a minute. So strength is specific to skill. But this is an excellent question. And we'll talk more about that in the future because as I lay out certifications, I will have to define what I expect of people as strength standards, but they will most likely be based on strength endurance for specific periods of time. The same way it used to be for like RKC back in the day where you had to do your X number of snatches with a 24 kilogram kettlebell. It wasn't a pure strength standard. It was a strength endurance standard. Armand Fuladvan. Wildman kettlebell question. When can we buy it? Whenever Bells of Steel finishes the landing page for it. It looks like Bells of Steel made my exact bell with their logo on it as well, with all the parts that I specified. So we will see what goes on with that. But as soon as they make the landing page for it, it's been in the warehouse now for 2 weeks. I have one right there. I have another one right here somewhere. We're just trying to build out equipment the way that I want, taking an existing product, adding a couple things to it, making it a little bit better. And that is the idea that we're going to do with everything. There's a lot of good equipment out there, but I think that all the equipment could be better over time. So we would like to do that. Whether or not people make my gear recommendations without me is something I don't know about yet. I got to stop telling everybody exactly how to make their products better because they'll just do it without me. But I'm working on it. We'll get there. Luis Lomas, which books manuals would you recommend for someone to learn mace and club movements? There's none that I recommend. None. There aren't any good ones, as far as I know. Are there any good ones? I don't know. If anybody knows of any good ones, let me know. No, I don't think people address it correctly. I just bought a club book about the history of clubs, and it was okay, but there was absolutely nothing in it about training, or at least training well, or like long-term training. What's the European guy, the blonde guy who goes to India all the time, who's really good and into traditional swinging, traditional meal swinging and gata swinging? I hear he's got something coming out. I can't remember the name right now. That's how you know I'm getting old and I've been hitting the head too much. But I haven't seen any good books about mace swinging. Like Any book that doesn't start with inside circle, outside circle, and shield cast, I'm not going to like anyway. Flowing Dutchman, that's the gentleman's name. Like the only trainers I think that write like good stuff is like Pioneer, you know? Pioneer, like that guy's a good writer. Like he writes about stuff well. But I can't think of anybody else. If anybody knows, let me know. I can't think of anybody else. Flowing Dutchman is a guy I like. I like his stuff. I'm not sure how he organizes information though. I've looked at none of his training programs or anything like that. I don't know if people take into, I don't think, no, well, I know nobody does anything like nerd math. Even trainers look at me like I'm crazy when I explain to them that there's a perfect mathematical order to progress things in. A lot of people do this in the traditional way, which is just do it, which I'm not a fan of because the odds of it failing are really high. I I tried to guarantee success, and I don't know if that's really a priority for other trainers. It's certainly not a priority for most people in the fitness world. Most people are trying to exclude people, not include people. Most people are not trying to guarantee success. They're trying to make things as fancy as possible. I'm not, I'm shooting for an entirely different market than all of these people. And I certainly write and talk about all these things in a different way. The best way you could learn about club swinging would be to buy the Basis of Strength program and do it and read the manual. That would be the best thing. For mace swinging, I can't think of any good. You have like Rick Brown who does heavy 360s and he's really good at it. And then you have flow guys, but like their information tends to be so complex, it's extremely hard to articulate in any logical way. I have some programs that I need to shoot for mace that lie in between those two extremes, but I don't know. Let me see if anybody commented on that. It'd be really cool to have some scientific grade illustrations of mace movements. I agree. I would love to produce that. I just don't have the time. How about Coach Vaughn, Coach Viking Vaughn? I think, yeah, I think he's a good Coach Viking Vaughn. He's a big guy, dark hair, beard. I think he does a lot of mace stuff. I think we disagree on some things, but I think that his work is excellent. Was it Vaughn or who was saying that mace swinging doesn't translate to sword swinging or something like that? And we got into an online discussion, very pleasant and positive discussion on that. And I think that that's not true. I think that learning mace and club obviously it makes you better at sword. And this gets into an idea where you are not directly replicating the movements of what you want to do, but you are training the same muscle chains and movement patterns. And training with any type of weighted lever in from simple to complex would obviously make you better at sword training. So I think we had an online discussion about that, like, I don't know, 2 years ago or whatever. But I think he does a lot of quality work. I think he does a lot of quality work. But I don't know. I haven't seen how they organize information. Like I am a psycho about organizing information, like 8 families of movements, 7 levels of complexity. Are other people doing that? I have no idea. Was the only one doing it. I don't know if people are doing that now. I think that other people, like the Basis of Strength program is absolutely bonkers because it just hammers basic human movement patterns in a increasingly complex and logical way, from simple to complex, from light to heavy. I don't know if anybody else does anything like it. I don't think anybody does. I'm trying to turn things like heavy club swinging into things like Olympic lifting, which have a multi-year strategy that turn people into monsters, right? And I wrote like the Basis of Strength program, start people at a 15 and get them to an 80. I have some heavier clubs on the way this week because I only have up to a 60, but I have a 72 coming this week. And then, so it's a huge jump from 60 to 72. So I'll have to go back to doing fancy math to progress that program. because it breaks down. But eventually, 8X will make the super add-on kits, and we will have, 61 and 0.25 pound weights, and we'll be able to walk all the way up. So I've written programs for equipment that is not fully realized in manufacture yet, but it'll get there. But I still don't know. Coach Vaughn has a mace book. Excellent. I would love to see it. Wildman mace handle is legendary. Excellent. Good. I'm glad people like it. I am going to redesign yet another mace handle and club handle and everything else once I get the chance to. Kettlebells, club, mace. If you can only pick two, which would it be? Kettlebells and clubs. Poltaboo. I don't know how to say that. He's got a kettlebell logo, though. It's cool. I think it's kettlebell. Yeah. Kettlebells, clubs, mace. If you could only pick two, which two would it be? It would be kettlebells and clubs. I would leave mace out. If you only have two, I think the two most important things that absolutely any athlete of any age could learn are kettlebells and clubs. 100%. 100%. That answer will never change. Here's a question about one of my previous clients, Chris Pine, the actor. What weight of club did Chris Pine get up to? Did you have to train him for years to get there? Yeah, we spent several years training. He started at 15 like everybody else. You'll notice he was very thin on Hell or High Water. He was using a 15 and then a 20 on that movie. Notice he got bigger on Trek. We got into 25 and 30. And then we got him up to, at one point, a 55. Like, I had custom clubs made for him because nobody made them. And we drug him around the world, and he was training with a 55. Got real beefy there for a while. Yeah, got up there. That's a good, solid weight to be able to do. Question, what's going on in Austin? We're doing a club and mace seminar at On It in the first weekend of May. Go ahead, come to that. It's club and it's mace. We're going to pull the staff out of that because we would like to focus more heavily on club and mace technique. And, the staff stuff is a little crazy for doing in more reputable gyms, I think. Back to the Chris Pine weight. Yeah, 55 pounds. That's a heavy weight. Yeah, 55 shield cast, 4 reps, shield cast squats. So it's the basis of strength program is the Chris Pine program, guys. I wrote it for actors, and I refined it over the years because, a light club, 35-pound club, you can travel with around the world. You can travel with a 50-pound club in a box and put it in a 55 and put it in a hard case, and it will go in check-on for the good flights. Like if you're flying business class and you get up to 70-pound bags, then you can slap a 55 in a 10-pound case and be coming in about 66 pounds and check it in. And then you can always have your gear with you. And if you check a couple of boxes, I wish I would have murdered for an 8X back then, so that you can do your training. You can get to the hotel and you have your training right there. You can train on the patio, on the deck in Portugal, and you can train on the coast in Italy, right there at the bottom by the beach. And you can do your work and jump in the ocean and swim out to a boat. Club training is very, very, very portable, and you can build a superhero physique in an extremely short period of time with a light weight. So all of my strategies are built on traveling around the world and being required to do this in a time frame. So all the perfect path and everything that I talk about, it's not just, it's tested. It's been multi-year tested strategies for how to get the absolute most out of people in the least amount of time with the least amount of equipment that can travel. Kettlebells are hard to travel with. Now that we have adjustable bells, and the Wildman adjustable bell will be out soon, now it becomes really easy. Because now you could carry 2 adjustable kettlebells in an 8X system with a an arc handle, a mace handle, and a club handle, and a bunch of weights, and you could check that on planes that have 70-pound limit for bags, and you could build absolute monsters anywhere in the world in short order. And all those things are light enough that you could do armor building and club, and boom, you're killing it. And then you could do like just a get up body weight get up program, and you're on fire for turning people into superheroes in super short period of time. Yeah. So yeah, 55-pound weight is a good weight to get to. I was using a 60 on that project. My arms were huge on that project. And I have a 70 coming this week just to try it out. I'm only going to have it for about a week before I have to go to London. I was hoping for 3 months because I just really want to lift heavy weights now. But we will continue to work. We're always working on what we need to do with the best equipment we have, and we're answering the questions in the best possible way for the least amount of time, for the least amount of money. It's always the goal. That's always, always, always going to be the goal. There will be sexy equipment that I want to design for really fun projects, but we always start with the most important thing and we build out from there. I have a whole program I wrote, which is also a superhero design program. I'm trying to get a company to manufacture the equipment for it, but who knows if I can get it done or not. We're just going to sit on that one until we get the stuff to actually do the program. There's no point in me writing programs and putting them out for equipment that doesn't exist, that was custom for a movie that no longer exists or something. Is the Austin event all levels? Where can I find more information? You can go to the Flo Shala page under events right now. It is listed there. The event is all levels. I assume anybody who's watching this Q&A has some knowledge of mace and club. So when you come, you will just get better at those things. So when we're doing this seminar, our goal is to make the people who come good at the most important parts. Everybody shows up with at least one major hole, but most people have about 5 major holes in their movement. And so we make sure that when people leave, their fundamentals are really good so that they can actually advance and go heavier in weight over time so they can get what they want out of training. Well, let's do one more here, and then we're going to shut this down because this is 2 hours now. It's got to be 5 o'clock here. Favorite martial arts movies? I mean, obviously John Wick. Obviously John Wick. The first one more than the other two, although the other two are sheer brilliance in design and movement. But the guys who designed the movement for John Wick, Chad Stahelski, is a freaking genius when it comes to movement. And so that is my absolute favorite martial arts movie. I love bad Van Damme movies. Not because they're great martial arts, but because they're fun to watch. What's some other favorite ones that I have? If you've ever watched the RZA's playlist of old kung fu movies on YouTube, there's like 100 of them last time I checked, and it's all the old 70s kung fu movies and everything like that, which are not like realistic or anything or well shot, but they are super fun movement wise to see how people expanded on what they could do and kind of created their own type of filmmaking by doing so. Obviously, I love The Karate Kid. It's not what I would call a martial arts movie, but it is a movie that influenced an entire generation of people to try to be better. And I thought that was one of the biggest things as I look back on something like The Karate Kid was something, it influenced people to try to do things. At the beginning of that book, Daniel San is learning from a book, or the beginning of that movie. He's learning from a book and he's trying to teach himself, which is what I did. And then I went out and sought out people to teach me. I just never really got a Miyagi until I had to become Miyagi, which is annoying. But one of my favorite scenes in all of movies is the opening running scene of Last of the Mohican, the tomahawk throwing scene, the running tomahawk scene in The Patriot. not a martial arts movie, but a brilliant thing that uh, I've only seen the running tomahawk throws in Last of the Mohicans and in The Patriot. But I don't know anybody who can do a running tomahawk throw. But if when I get a space again, that's the first thing on my list, because being able to throw accurately while running is incredible as an idea and as a movement pattern. It combines so many things together. The Raid, fantastic martial arts movie. Ong Bak, I like The Raid even more, which was kind of remade as Judge Dredd with Carl Urban, which was a fantastic movie in general. Super fun. Somebody else likes The Raid. Of course, people are talking about Bloodsport. Tons of people got into martial arts because of Bloodsport. Yeah, I'll have to sit down and think about all the movies that I've loved over the years. Obviously, The Matrix was massively influential for people in the study of kung fu and movement cinema. Did I just hit that thing and mess it up? A lot of ideas out there, but I mean, John Wick is to me the height of all filmmaking and movement design. Cheap movie shot in a short period of time, adapted to the sets and the scenes, combining a bunch of stuff together that people had not combined together before. And the gun handling in John Wick 1 is amazing. The style is called center action relock. It was invented by a guy named Paul Castle. I was a Paul Castle center action relock gun instructor at one point, or certified. So when I saw that in John Wick, I loved it. The type of gun handling they do in 2 and 3 is different, and I much prefer the original style of gun handling, which is based on being able to pivot hands back and forth from side to side and moving a gun from far out away from you to putting it within focal distance of the eye so that you can see both the target and the sights at the same time. Whereas when you're at full press out in John Wick 2, full lockout, isosceles and whatnot, you cannot see the target and the sights at the same time. So I much prefer the style in 1. The style of shooting in John Wick 1, that center action relock, is 2 triangles stacked on top of each other. It's a triangle with the upper body stacked on top of a triangle with the lower body put into movement. So the strongest way to hold something is like this. You will notice it's very similar to heavy club swinging, and then it's brought up to this position here, which is another version of a triangle, and then it is moved into focal distance of the eye. So if you watch the bathhouse scene where he turns corners, he's turning corners and the gun comes out first and his eye comes out second, his body comes out third. Whereas in later movies, he's doing competition style where he comes out body, gun, and eye all at the same time, which is, arguably much more dangerous. If you want to talk about gun styles, we talk about gun styles all day too. I like the center action relock style because it was originally designed for inside of dark buildings, 6 feet and under, and inside of cars, which is not, they did not utilize that idea in any of the Wick movies. So think about sitting in a car in a seatbelt and shooting over your shoulder without having to come all the way out of the car or open the door. Nerd stuff. Yeah, so I could talk about John Wick 1 all day. I would love to do an analysis of it at some point, because my friend Selkie can do every move in the movie. And at one point, I could do most of them, but if I could get with her, we'll make a whole video series that's just recreating all the movements from John Wick and then building stuff around it. That would be super fun. And someday I'll get her to do that. All right. Well, guys, it's been an hour and 28 minutes. We have talked everybody's ear off as usual. There was somebody who wanted to turn these, sound master these and make these better. I can't remember who that was. If somebody on the Discord remembers who was offering to sound master all of these, I would love to sound master these and break them up into smaller videos. So somebody remembers that, let me know. And we can move forward from there. I would like to sound master all these things because we come up with a lot of really great ideas based on questions with this. And I feel like we all learn a lot this way. The more questions I get, the better my answers get, the better I get at organizing information. That's the point. You'll notice the questions at these things get better and better and better over time. You'll notice people from the Discord send a couple of people in to ask questions that are very clearly labeled and very clear and distinct. Everybody's learning how to have better questions, how to organize their information better, and that's the whole idea. Eventually, the goal is to create super trainers all around the world, and then we will have certifications, and it will all be a thing. There's tons of stuff that needs to be done. We just have to do it. So thanks everybody for showing up, and everybody have a good day. Thank you for stopping by on a Saturday. We just did this randomly very quickly because I realized I wasn't going to be able to edit another video today, but we have a bunch of box opening videos coming up on some nerd stuff. I have a Felon Fair cloak that we're going to open on camera because I should just embrace being a nerd. An Odinson archery bow, and a Fairbin dagger. Those are going to be the first 3 box openings. We'll try and get those out next week. Thanks, everybody.